Audio test, audio test. Audio test, audio test. Audio test, audio test. Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm just about to get started with streaming some Red, White, Death, and Taxes this afternoon. I randomly got a day off of work because it's cold. I'm a teacher, and that's a thing that can apparently happen. It's been my second cold day in a row, and I'm not complaining. I'm Phil Gallagher, Death and Taxes enthusiast, and I run ThrabenU University, an educational site about death and taxes. I've been playing this red-white build for 2 or 3 weeks now, and I've been very, very happy with it. Currently, I am sitting at a 65% win percentage with the deck. I am 57 and 31 with it. So we're 88 matches in and feeling pretty good about it. The red is for Haymaker cards in Magus of the Moon and Pia and Kieran Millar, as well as a Cunning Spark Mage in the sideboard. Most of what's going on with this deck is pretty stock, although the Rest in Peace in the main deck is pretty spicy and has been working out pretty well for me. So I'm just about at 100 matches with this deck, and at 100 matches or a little while afterward, I'm going to go ahead and write an article breaking down the data set from these matches. But so far, I think I have 4 or 5 5-0s with the deck. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I am at 4 5-0 finishes with this deck, which is pretty respectable, and more than I had with the mono white version. I think I had 2 5-0s, maybe 3 with the mono white version. It wasn't a ton. Sort of feeling a noticeable difference in how my matches have gone. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. The channel has a new feature now. As you all requested, I went and installed MTG Bot on this channel. So if you need to look up a card or use its other features, that is available to you now. If you don't know how to use that feature, you can type !help, and it will take you to a page that shows you all of the functionality of this bot. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it with Red, White, Taxes. This is the start of a brand new league, so yeah, so the bot works, but because I haven't played any matches in this league yet, it won't register. We're slowly working on making this channel more and more professional. Yeah, these random Monday afternoon leagues are not something you should get used to, Disgruntled Elk. I got the day off of work because it's really cold in Roanoke. But, you know, we'll try to get in maybe about 2 leagues this afternoon and 1 more league in the evening. The mono white versus Eldrazi post matchup is interesting. The mana denial elements work really well for a while, but ultimately they often just go so much bigger than a couple of our ports and wastelands can go. So you're trying to close the door as quickly as you can while also denying mana. If you're light on revokers to shut off things like their mana rocks when they're playing those, it can be difficult. Yeah, if you have Cataclysm in your list, that helps a ton. very, very noticeable difference in your win percentage there. Alright. Kenjin Sakura. Last seen on Reanimator just a couple of days ago, so we can likely assume that is what our opponent is still on. They have quite a few finishes with Reanimator. We are on the play with a respectable hand that I would 100% keep blind. My opponent has also played Blue-Red Delver quite a bit, and this would be a fine hand against Delver. Like, we have Mom, Vial, backup Mom. Yeah, I think we'll keep this. It's not good if he's on Reanimator, but it's fine if they're on Delver. And if our opponent has the ability to switch to 2 different decks, then they could be playing other things as well. Like, people like me that only tend to play one deck, like, we're not going to switch around very much. But, you know, someone who has, like, a Mana Trader's subscription, for example, would be much more likely to just be able to switch and play whatever they want. And it seems like we were... Ooh! So the good news here is that next turn we can hardcast this Recruiter and get a Thalia. So if we can make it 1 turn, we're in good shape. And we have this Rishadan Port to help us out with that. No, I'm going to guess Storm here. Like, it could be Sneak and Show, but like, my opponent has the matchup knowledge to go ahead and play out that Lotus Petal ahead of time. Oh, alright, immediately proven wrong. In case our opponent randomly has Blood Moon in the main, we're going to go ahead and fetch out a basic Plains. We have a second Plateau anyway for if we happen to draw Pia and Kira and Nalar, and we're kind of hoping not to have that card in this matchup anyway. So, Sanctum Prelate would be really, really good. But my strategy is going to be try to mana denial them. I don't think they have a show and tell right now, or they would have just jammed it. So they might have a sneak attack, in which case if they have a land, they can play a sneak attack. And getting a Revoker would be great against sneak attack, but if they don't have it and they just need to like cantrip and stuff, getting a Thalia is way better. So that's what I'm going to do here. And we're going to go ahead and battle with this Mom. It's it doesn't need to protect from anything in this matchup. So our plan is to get this Thalia in play and hopefully port our opponent out of the rest of the game. They have a window this turn to do something that matters. Like if they go land, sneak attack, and they have a red source too, that's very, very bad for us. But otherwise, like they'd have to have like Show and Tell, Omni, Emrakul, or Grizzlebrand to start doing some things that matter. Alright, there's the hard cast sneak attack I was worried about. It's unfortunate. So 3, 6, 7, 8. I can go up to getting quite a few permanents here, so that I'll still have some amount of a board if my opponent just Emrakuls me. So 4 power, they're on a 3-turn clock. If I play out the Mom... No, I'm going to play out the Vial. The question is, do I want to port the mountain or do I want to port the island? If they have the creature right now, then porting the mountain is bad. If they don't have the creature right now, then porting the island is good because it is going to let us play around them cantripping into a creature. They have 5 cards in hand. They haven't cast any. They've cast 1 cantrip this game, and they haven't really had an opportunity to cast a second. If I port the mountain and they have a brainstorm, they can brainstorm in response. If I'm going to port the island. This will play around a Ponder or a Preordain, digging them for another creature. Either way, I don't really play around a Brainstorm or them already having a creature in hand. Glad to be in the streaming world. Yeah, when you play against elves, you just lose. If you want my thoughts on the elves matchup, you can type !elves in the chat now. That's one of my new features. Grizzlebrand is not the end of the world here. What event was yesterday? Was that the MKM? MKM results were interesting. I think there was a metalworker in the top 8 of that. Or was that the classic. There's a Metalworker deck in one of those. Okay, so we could have done a couple things differently that game. We could have not played the Recruiter and ported our opponent, and then waited the next turn to play the Recruiter. If I would have done that, I probably would have recruited for Prelate and put Prelate on 3. So that actually wouldn't have gotten me out of what had happened here. There were some other marginally different lines we could have taken, but that was the sort of big opportunity to make a different choice. All right. So we were on the draw that time, and we lost against Kenjin Sakura. All right, so we bring in Priest. We bring in Canonist. We bring in Relic Warder. We bring in Prelate. We start by taking out the Spicy Rest in Peace. We take out a Swords to Plowshares. We can take out this Jitte. We can bring in Mirren Crusader as a generic beating guy. And then we still have some cards that aren't great. Like, we don't particularly want these Magus of the Moons because they, like, our opponent is a Blood Moon deck too, and it shuts off our Caracas and our Ports and our Wastes, all of which are solid cards in this matchup. But we don't really have other great things that we can go and bring in here. I'll bring in a Pia and Kieran and keep one Magus. I might revisit that for the next game. This hand is not ideal, but we have a Mom into Athalia with Port backup, and that's good enough. Like, I would like one more spell here over land number 5, but we're not likely to get a better hand on 6. Our opponent has mulliganed once, which means good things for us. So Disgruntled Elk, the trouble is that if we sort of wait too long, we don't have any pressure going, and most of our lock pieces in this matchup are soft lock pieces. Mercadian would you just copy and paste that comment, and after I finish this match, post it again, and I'll go ahead and answer that. But that's a long comment, and I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit. Wow, this hand got really insane all of a sudden now that we drew that prelate. So we're going to get to curve all of these uncounterable Thalia into prelate. off the mom as well. I'm going to go ahead and fetch a basic plains here on the off chance. Well, it's a reasonable assumption that my opponent may have Blood Moon in their deck right now. I think it's unlikely that my opponent will have a 1-drop removal spell to hit this Thalia. And my opponent can't do, like, Soul Land into Pyroclasm right now, so I'm going to go ahead and sneak in a point of damage with this Mom. I probably won't attack with the Mom again for the rest of this game, though. So this is nice. We're going to put this on 3, and it is going to stop Show and Tell and Kozilek's return, as well as having the random value of shutting off things like Intuition if my opponent is playing them. My opponent has a Brainstorm. They're also pretty priced into playing it right now in case I set the prelate on 1. So beginning next turn, we will not deploy any more spells, and we will just double port our opponent for the rest of the game. This game is effectively over. If my opponent has a Pyroclasm this turn, I will get to save either the Thalia or the Prelate, and I'll probably opt for the Prelate, and then I'll get to deploy another Mom and have protection for the Prelate up again. Ooh, yes, tapping the Soul Land to ponder. I will like it. They have shuffled with the ponder. They have not found what they're looking for. Ooh. Ooh. This is okay. This is okay. Draws have been cooperative. We're not just going to slam this Jailer to start drawing cards, because like our opponent has plenty of things in their deck that still matter. Like we still care about them just hard casting a sneak attack, for example. Start by going after their volcanic island here. And now we have to decide whether we want to tap the Ancient Tomb or the island. If my opponent has another land and I tap the island, they cannot cast a Sneak and Show or a sneak attack unless it is a soul land. If I tap the Ancient Tomb, they can't cast the sneak attack at all. So we're going to go ahead and attack the soul land here. So I am going to start off the same way this time. We're going to start by porting the volcanic. My opponent has floated a mana, so we're going to set a stop in their draw step, and we'll port them a second time in their draw step. We'll see if they use this mana here. So now we're in their draw step. If they tap the Ancient Tomb, they will die to our board with us still having the Mother of Runes as backup. So at this point, we'll go ahead and tap the island. And our opponent scoops it up. So we are on the draw. We win that one. We won that one off Thalia into prelate, into double port. It's a very ideal draw on our end. Our opponent did not have a ton of opportunities to really do anything that mattered there. Alright, now we need to think about what we want to do for this game. So in the previous match, I didn't really have a lot, or in the previous time I was sideboarding, I was messing with my spreadsheet, so I didn't have a lot of time to think about this, but I don't really like this Magus of the Moon. It shuts off our Karakas and our Port and our Wasteland, all of which are very, very good cards. And our opponent is going to have a basic island within the first turn or two of this matchup, pretty much every time, no matter what. A lot of the other cards here just don't really matter, though, unfortunately. Like, I don't think we want to go so deep as to bring in something like Cataclysm to blow up a couple of lands. Like, this Jitte isn't really powerful enough for me to want to fetch it, and I don't particularly want to draw it in this matchup. So that might just mean I have to keep a Magus. So, like, I can board in a Path as something that can deal with a Grizzlebrand. Or ramp one of my, or, like, just use it on one of my own guys to accelerate if need be. Not great. Yeah, I don't really want any of these cards. I think I'll shove a Path in over a Jitte. Like, that Jitte is not really going to be relevant in this matchup. A Path could be. Probably not. Like, my opponent does not want to rely on a Grizzlebrand in this matchup. Like, if they Omniscience it in, draw a bunch of cards, sure. Ugh. This hand is a toughie. It has double Ether Vial Mom, Containment Priest, Palace Jailer. We have a lot of great tools for this matchup. But one land. We're on the draw, and we have this Path to Exile we randomly boarded in. So, if worst comes to worst, we can Path to Exile the Mom and get another land that way so we can do this Containment Priest. We're keeping it. Bad things can happen with this hand in a number of different ways. But we drew the second land, so it does not matter. Deck is great, our decision is great. Well, my opponent has a tricky brainstorm, so that's good for us. That probably means they don't just have, like, force of will plus the ability to combo off right now. Alright, so they pitch a force of will with a force of will. That was probably a misplay. I probably shouldn't have played this file, thinking about it for a second longer. I have two really relevant 2-drops that I probably just should have cast. I regret that. I think I should have just played Thalia this turn. Like, this vial will be good if the game goes on a little while, but I might just lose for playing this vial. Yes, midday stream. School was closed because it is very cold in Virginia right now. Virginia is not really made to deal with the, like, sub-32-degree weather. Like, pipes are freezing everywhere. It's just not good as a whole. Yes, we get cold days in Virginia. Alright. Yes, and I got MTG bot set up. In the hopes that my opponent just shows in a creature and not Omniscience, we are going to play Palace Jailer. Ooh. Alright, chat. Everything worked out. So my misplay allowed my opponent to cast the Show and Tell, allowing me to put in the Palace Jailer, eating the Emrakul. So we have two choices for what we want to do this turn. We can either Thalia or Containment Priest. I want to Thalia so that my Vial is still active for another turn or two. Yes, the Monarch, this nice grayed out card right here. Okay, so if I attack my mom if I attack with everything, my opponent goes to 14 here. I have 5 power on board. That's a 3-turn clock. If I don't, it puts them at 15. I'd be looking at a longer clock. But I think given how good my board is, I would like to just play around a Pyroclasm. Like, this Thalia is really important right now. Where's the Doctor misses the Monarch? That is a great question. Who, buddy? So if my opponent casts anything, I'm going to Vial in this Canonist in response. I'm not going to play it out ahead of time, again, to play around Pyroclasm a little bit. My opponent is also on 2 cards. Hey, there's that Pyroclasm I just played around. Alright. That's all fine. So the question is, do I want to cast this Containment Priest now to get an attack with it for 2 points of damage? Since my opponent has literal 0 cards in hand, I can like try to just press that advantage, but I'll shut off my own Vial if I do, and my Vial going up to 3 would be real nice. So if I just attack my opponent for 2, they go down to 7, and then if I don't play the Vial, I can produce 7 power by ticking Vial up, using Flicker Wisp, and casting Containment Priest. And that presents 7 power for lethal the following turn, whereas I might not be able to present lethal the following turn if I cast the Containment Priest, if I don't draw either a land or a 2-drop that I can cast. Yeah, the flavor of Palace Jailer sending Emrakul to jail is pretty hilarious. So, if my opponent just has 1 card, they actually can't go off in any way that requires me to play this Containment Priest. So what I'm going to do is just play a Canonist out here, a second one, go to my end step, draw a card, and then Flicker Wisp out one of their lands. Actually, strike that. Since they can only play 1 spell, their land count doesn't really matter. I'll just Flicker Wisp out one of my Canonists to protect it from just a top-decked second Pyroclasm. I have looked at the Rival of Ixalan spoilers. Blood Sun is gas. Most of the rest of the set doesn't impress me. Alright, we got there. Someone had a long comment for me about elves that they were going to post after this match. I think it was Mercadianeer. If you want to repost that comment now, I'd be happy to answer that in more detail now. So won game 3 with Palace Jailer for Emrakul off Show and Tell. We might have misplayed in the first place by playing that Vial out instead of the Thalia, but it worked out for us. Palace Jailer didn't exist. I think Bishop of Binding could see play. That's very possible. Palace Jailer is pretty great, though. All right, so Mercadianeer is looking for an opinion about the Elves matchup. I was on the draw in game 3. I kept a hand with 2 lands, Containment Priest, Canonist, Council's Judgment, and a couple other things. After my opponent turn 2 had Heritage Druid and a Nettle Sentinel on board, would I play the Canonist or keep mana up for Containment Priest? He had Cradle as his second land. So right now, the opponent is showing 3 mana with the potential to get to 4 for a natural order pretty easily. All right, and Mercadianeer had also Swordsday Wirewood Symbiote already. So Do you want to play the Aethersworn Canonist, or do you want to keep up the Containment Priest? And sort of your approach here is, what do you want to play around? Do you want to play around the card Natural Order, and to a lesser degree, Green Sun Zenith, or do you want to play around your opponent having Glimpse or multiple spells? Generally speaking, like, it's a decision that is really contextual. If you have, a couple other relevant cards like this Council's Judgment, then maybe just playing the Canonist is fine. Like, if you don't have a Stoneforge to start, like, chipping away at the board, keeping your opponent's board under control can be very, very important. So it's fine, I think, to just play the Canonist. Because if your opponent just plays, like, Elf, Elf, Elf on their turn, then all of a sudden so many of their cards become live due to the mana from Cradle. Like, then Nissa starts mattering, you're drawing another Wirewood Symbiote to bounce. Elvish Visionary starts to matter. And if your opponent just does something on their turn, like Natural Orders for Progenitus, which I don't think most Elves players would do, but if they did, you have that Council's Judgment to go ahead and get rid of it. Unless your opponent's hand is very, very good, the Natural Order on that turn wouldn't kill you. If they can't cast another spell before it, you're actually okay there. Because 3 creatures means the trigger essentially gives 9 power. The Crater Hoof itself has 5, so that's a total of 14, and you're probably looking at 2 to 3 more power from the board. So you're not actually dead to an all-out attack. And if they have that hoof, then you can Council's Judgment that away on your following turn, and just kind of hold off for a few turns and hope that the rest of your hand gets there. So short answer, yes, I would go ahead and play the Canonist. With Elves, yes, a lot of the times you lose to Natural Order, but just as many times you lose to your opponent just playing a Glimpse, or just getting value out of Wirewood Symbiote, or just like Cradle, Nissa, untap Cradle, dump out the rest of your hand, and just swarm the board with a bunch of idiots. So I'm with the Canonist there. Okay, so you say, all right, that's what I told all my friends as well. I lost against Natural Order on Craterhoof and never saw my 3rd land, but I was pretty sure to make the right decision there. Yeah, not having the 3rd land is awkward, but you're very likely to draw another land. Like, if you only have 2, that's, assuming you're playing 23 lands, then that's 21 lands left in the deck. You've already drawn something like 9 of the cards out of your deck. So you're pretty close to 50-50 to hitting a land drop. So that's all fine. Okay, so now that a few more people are here, welcome to the chat. I'm Phil Gallagher. I'm playing Red, White, Death, and Taxes today. MTG Bot is now working on the channel, for those of you that requested that. So if you're not sure what that means, you can type !help, and the bot will send you a link that tells you what all it can do. I also have enabled a couple of custom commands for this channel specifically. Those are in the box below the chat. We are currently 1-0 in this league. We just beat Sneak and Show. I'm hoping to do about 2 leagues this afternoon and 1 in the evening after dinner. We're getting close to 100 matches with Red, White Taxes, and so far we are at about 66% win percentage now. Nope, it hasn't quite rounded up. We're still at 65% win percentage, which is very good. Quite happy with that. This is one of the first time I've done a league midday. Timer takes a little while. It's possible you might want to have a deck list command to link to a visual form of the deck list, and then a separate command for sideboard, so you can have a plug that advertises both the deck list and sideboard, and only update each individually when one changes. That's a good possibility. I'm going to just kind of write that down as a note to myself. I could also have the decklist command just send people to my website where I have it all up with, you know, everything auto-carded, so you can just scroll over and see what it is. That's another option as well. Man. Legacy Q midday is rough. 3 minutes for this match. Ugh. Yeah, chat, and if you have other ideas for commands, I'm all ears. I don't spend a ton of time hanging out on Twitch, so I don't know what a ton of other people do for their commands. When I throw something on, I just usually am watching the content. I'm not watching the stream. All right, our opponent was last seen on Miracles, and the bot tells me that. That's so convenient. Our hand is solid. Even if our opponent isn't on Miracles, you know, we have 2 2-drops and a 3-drop. So Archmage, do you know what other people usually do for their deck lists? Like, do they just like do a small image? Do they do like a text version in the chat there? What do other people do? What do I want to do this turn? That is a great question. If I play this Plateau and my opponent is on something like Delver and drops something like a Young Pyromancer, I can use it immediately. But if this Plateau gets Wastelanded, it's super awkward. I'll play the Plateau for the sake of the curve, because, like, if the Plateau gets Wastelanded, then I still have the Cavern of Souls to cast the Thalia and half of Palace Jailer. There's also a very good possibility our opponent is just on a Storm deck as well. Nope. Second Thalia is nice as well. Okay, Archmage, I will keep that in mind as an option. Thank you. Yeah. So for the opponents that switch decks and have multiple decks that they've played, I am less willing to just trust what Goldfish tells me. I'm going to play Thalia here. Playing Revoker on Deathrite would stop my opponent from doing something like hardcasting a True Name Nemesis. But I'd rather play the one that's uncounterable right now, as well as get the thing that will be good more generically against most of their deck. Our opponent fears the cavern. Zombie fish, zombie fish. My opponent probably has a daze. Like they wastelanded our cavern, indicating that they want the ability to use their counter magic. Yep. So this Deathrite Shaman currently cannot activate in any... Never mind. I'd like to continue to draw lands here. We're sort of under the gun as far as pressure goes, which is really unfortunate, because we have all the tools we need to win this matchup, but not the lands to deploy them. Like, if I get the option to stick this Palace Jailer, the game probably ends on the spot. But between the Deathrite draining us, the Gurmag Angler attacking, and this Delver potentially flipping, we're not in a good spot. So we can Stoneforge to go get a Batterskull or a Jitte. We can Revoker to turn off the Deathrite. Those are our two options. The Deathrite only has 2 more pieces of food left, so the Deathrite can at maximum deal us 4 points of damage as of right now, but is likely to find more food. It's not a great spot. I'm going to hope to try to stabilize the board by playing the Stoneforge. My opponent has another counterspell here, we're probably just dead. Yeah, that should be the game right there. And we are not going to attack with the Thalia in case the Delver does not flip. We are not the aggressor right now, and we won't be for many, many turns. Oh, geez. Delver flipping the Lightning Bolt. We're real dead. Alright, so this is 5, 8, 9, 10, up to 13 damage with the Gurmag and with the Lightning Bolt and the Deathrite Shaman going at me. Are there any circumstances under which I win this game? Probably not. I will block the Gurmag Angler to save the life here, just so I don't immediately die the next turn. But I expect to win this game under no circumstances. I will go ahead and just concede the game now, rather than try to live one more turn, because I won't to what's already on board. This is 8 damage, Bolt is 11, double Deathrite, Shaman activation is 15. Alright, so we're playing against Grixis, Delver. We lost on the draw. So we essentially lost to a creature-heavy draw. Deathrite Shaman, Delver, Gurmag. Those draws are harder for us to beat than the spell-based draws. So what do we get for this matchup? We get some paths. We get some rest in pieces. We get a Mirren Crusader. Nice little package to bring in. So what do we want to get rid of here? Phyrexian Revoker is not great. Recruiter is pretty slow. And then I always waffle back and forth on these last couple of ones. I'm really used to boarding with the mono white version. The red white version is a little different. Like, I can go ahead and remove these 4-drops because if my opponent has True Name Nemesis or Young Pyromancer, Palace Jailer is really bad, and Pia and Karen Nalar is really hard to cast. It's great endgame inevitability, but I don't really need anything that big to win this matchup. I just need any creature plus a piece of equipment. So we're sort of really heavy on removal post-board in this matchup. So, like, we have essentially these as effective removal spells, treating Rest in Peace as a removal spell for things like Gurmag Angler and Deathrite Shaman, and it also decreases the power of Cabal Therapy. We still have plenty of creatures post-board. It is possible that I should actually keep these recruiters in here and trim 2 of my Thalias. That's something that I've done a little bit with this build and played around with. And it's something that other people I've talked with who have been playing the red-white build do as well. I might make that change on the draw, but on the play, I think I'll keep the Thalias. I would like to play first. Oh, chat, this one's so close. It's so close to being exactly what we want. 4 removal spells and a Batterskull. One of those lands was white. I would keep this in a heartbeat. Well, this hand doesn't do anything. It has 2 wastelands, which is great. It has one of our best creatures and a removal spell, which is also great, but I can't cast any of my spells. Yeah, so Archmage, the question here is, do we want to hope that our scry or first draw step here gets us to a white source, or do we want to hope that our hand on 5 is better? We have 21 lands remaining in the deck, so we're sub 50% to hit on 1 draw, but with scry and draw, we're at a decent percentage. Like, this hand has what we want if we hit a white source. Going to 5 on the play is sort of dubious. We might just get Delvered if we keep this. Or if our opponent leads on Deathrite Shaman, this hand is really bad. I like our chances of winning if we hit the land, but if we don't hit the land, we might be dead. I'm down a game. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one. It's close. I'll keep this one. That land can go on the bottom. So, with this hand, I have the ability to play magic. Like, any spell I draw, I can cast. So on our previous hand, like, we wasteland our opponent's Valk, and then they still have a Delver in play. Not the greatest position for us. All right. So I can play Flooded Strand and Windswept Heath, both for planes, and go get and just cast Jitte and then carve into Flickerwisp with no ability to be obstructed by Wasteland. Or I can do Plains Caracas and give myself the opportunity to be wastelanded, but allow myself the chance to cast my Flicker Wisp no matter what on the following turn. If this Delver blind flips, I would like to be able to flip it back. One of the spells I play here will probably get countered. I don't have any red right now. I only have 2 Magus in the deck as red cards currently. I'll play the Caracas and leave myself the opportunity of drawing Magus of the Moon as a Haymaker. It's often correct to wait as long as you can on the fetch lands with the red-white build. All my Delver opponents are keeping their dazes on the draw, which seems really questionable to me. Alright, my opponent has a Ponder. That Stormy. Isn't D&T altogether in a tough spot in this meta? I don't think so. Like, I'm sitting at a 65 or a 66% win percentage with D&T currently. That's pretty great for me. I'm very happy with that. Like, a lot of the top tier matchups are really good. Miracles isn't the greatest matchup, but otherwise most of the top tier stuff is fine. Check pile can be tricky, but as long as you build your deck with a way to fight check pile, it's not so bad. Alright, my opponent set up their Ponder to allow their Insectile Aberration to flip again, if need be. Alright, well. YOLO. No! Alright. So my opponent has had 2 counterspells and a Lightning Bolt to answer everything I've done so far, as well as a blind Delver flip and a backup setup Delver flip. Yeah, Stormy, I will flash the deck list after this match, although it is also right below the stream there. Alright, so we kind of have to take maximum greed plays here, since we're pretty far behind in terms of the clock. Like, this Deathrite Shaman alone will probably kill us before we can really do anything. So we're going to Flicker Wisp, blink one of our own lands. Oh, my opponent is F6, so they don't have anything from here. That's great. And now we will Swords the flipped Delver. And if we draw like a Rest in Peace or another removal spell to deal with the Deathrite, and our opponent does not flip this Delver, or just otherwise trade it with our flip... Wow, my opponent fetched away Lightning Bolt there? That seems like a poor decision. Oh wait, no, they went to their main phase. Never mind. Alright, we're pretty dead. Oh great, and an Izzet Staticaster. Oh, so my approach to 4-color control. Yeah. Alright, chat, we got Delvered real hard that game. Our opponent definitely had it all. And we took a mull to 5 as well. Well, I felt pretty dead, so I was exactly that dead. Yes, so in the mono-white deck list, my approach to check pile, 4-color control, was to go heavy on Mirroring Crusaders, because they can't really answer that card with very many of their cards. Whereas in the red-white version, I seek to deny them mana with Magus of the Moon, go bigger than they can go with Pia and Kiran Nalaar, which, backed up by Caracas, is a nightmare for any control deck, whether it be check pile or miracles. Alright. So that one was a loss. There was very little we could have done differently in that match. Yeah, a lot went right for our opponent, a lot went wrong for us. Like, we needed to mulligan the 7. The 6 would not have gotten there with what my opponent had. That would not have worked out at all. Like, I would have just probably died to that Delver flipping on turn 1 blind there. And the 5 was very reasonable, but my opponent had Daze for Jitte, Force for a Flicker Wisp, Lightning Bolt for a Flicker Wisp, another Lightning Bolt, and an Is It Staticaster, so, yeah. That was pretty abysmal. Alright, so we are currently 1-1 in this league, getting back in the queue, because it'll probably take like 3 minutes to find a match with how my luck has been going here today. Hey! Alright, glad to have you here. Vilkes 10? Pronunciation may not be right there, but either way, happy to have you. I really like interacting with people from other country. I'm always pleasantly surprised how good everyone else's English is. When I've gone and visited other places, I've been speaking in like broken Greek or French, and as I struggle through things, everyone else always just switches into relatively flawless English and interacts with me. So that always makes me so happy. You know, part of my perspective on that is I'm a language teacher as well. I teach Latin, and my background is in classics, so I've done ancient Greek as well, and I've dabbled in a few other languages here and there. Yeah. No matter where you are, everyone loves Death and Taxes, except for the people getting ported out of a game. They like Death and Taxes a little bit less. Ozymandias, I recognize this name. I've played against them before. Last seen on 4-color control about a month ago. We will keep this hand. It is slow, but we get the curve of Plains into Port U into either Wingmare or Magus, with the other one as a follow-up. And we were on the play for this one as well, which is good. I might shift his hand back on the draw. It might be slow on the draw. And that was a misplay. I should have played a fetch land there to fetch out a Plains. So Archmage, I teach a spoken Latin class, and like the very first thing I tell people is like, just relax. You're gonna make a mistake. Everyone makes a mistake, but if people get the gist of what you're saying, that's great. That's sort of what we're striving for. I don't have a lot of information about what my opponent is playing yet. Like, they were seen on... Thanks for stopping in, Disgruntled Elk. They were seen on 4-color control, but, you know, this opening is a very general opening and could be a lot of different legacy decks. So I'm going to go ahead and lead on the Wingmare here. Ooh, Omniscience. Alright, so we are playing against Sneak and Show. We were on the play. We are playing against Ozymandias 17. Alright, our question now becomes, do we want to slam this Magnus? Our opponent does not have the whole combo right now. Like, if they had a show and tell, they would have jammed it. If they had a sneak attack, even if they don't have a second red source, they would probably just put it in play to play around a Thalia. Jamming the Magus means that I will shut off my own Caracas, but it will stop them from fetching. It'll turn City of Traders into a land that only produces 1 mana. But awkwardly, if they have another land but didn't have another red source and thus didn't play the sneak attack, they would have red to both cast and activate. We will jam the Magus. Like, I need to put some pressure on my opponent, and if I just sit back and, like, play Jitte and Port, I'm not really getting anywhere. I will pay 2 for that. Yeah, like, with what I have now, I've still got quite a few turns of clock to work through. Like, I kind of have to hope that my opponent doesn't really have anything. Alright, there's the sneak attack. There's a Grizzlebrand. There's an Emrakul. So, like, if we don't Magus there and we have a Caracas, that doesn't really beat what they have here right now. Like, we would have ported them, but they would have used double Lotus Petal to go ahead and just cast the sneak attack, which they probably had which they probably just drew this turn. So, like, just holding up Caracas is probably not going to be good enough to beat the sneak attack here, especially with no clock to back it up. Like, our opponent's at 8, but that's only because they drew 7. Alright, so we get Containment Priest and Canonist. We get Relic Warder and Crusader and Prelate. Crusader just being a better beater. We take out this Rest in Peace. We take out the Swords to Plowshares. As we saw here, Magus of the Moon is really awkward, so we'll go ahead and pull those out, and then we have to throw one more card in. We can either throw it in like a Cataclysm or a Path to Exile. And last time we went and threw in the Path to Exile because it can hit a Grizzlebrand without giving them life, or in a pinch, it can also be something that can ramp us, which is not irrelevant. I wonder if I should try out the Cataclysm just for the sake of trying it, though. Like, I don't think it's particularly good, but in the hands where they sort of flub, taking them off a few mana can matter. Like, the path's only good if things go sort of wrong in the first place, and you have to be holding it up at the right time. I don't think this is great, but I don't think any of these cards are great. Like, even, like, just boarding in a random Pia and Kiran Nalar is not good. Like, it's a body, but it's slow. Like, I don't even want this Jitte. Maybe that's better. Just something I can vial. Alright, this hand is great. It has multiple pieces of disruption and an ether vial. We will be fetching a plains with this flooded strand in case our opponent has a blood moon. Our vial resolved. Great for us. Cavern is a great draw. That means this Thalia is uncounterable. Our opponent will brainstorm in response, which is fine. So Mad Matt, like, Jitte can do things like that, but I don't want to use my mana in the early turns of the game to equip Jitte and play Jitte at all, if possible. Like, my early turns are for deploying things like Thalia, Revoker, Containment Priest, Canonist, Vial, porting my opponent. Like, tapping out to get a Jitte equipped is dangerous. Oh, man. Oh, man, chat. Is this good? Is this good? Our opponent is never going to get to do things. Yeah, you try paying that mana. Yeah, that's right. So we now know that our opponent has a Force of Will in hand as well as a blue card. So I think I'm about 99% to want to wasteland my opponent's volcanic island on this turn. And then vial in a piece of equipment. I'm going to attack for my opponent for 4 down to 13. I have 2 more things I want to vial in. Do I want to use my mana for 2 turns to equip the sword? I think that's fine. Like, the Batterskull is okay, but hitting any other card off of sword will probably lock this game up, and it will play around something like a Pyroclasm for either my Thalia or my Wingmare. I'm going to leave the Vial on 2 for this turn, since I have both a 2 and a 3-drop. Set a stop at my end of combat. and use this opportunity to wasteland my opponent. I don't need to main phase either one of the two things that I can do right now. My opponent needs one more mana for whatever they're about to do, unless this is a Lotus Petal. Ah, yes, the good old Ponder off of Ancient Tomb. Well, my opponent didn't shuffle. So I don't know what amazing thing they have that they would want to keep. We'll just go ahead and name Sneak Attack here. More or less anything we name isn't going to be relevant. This game is over because I'm going to Flicker Wisp out one of their lands. So I can hit for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How about we hit for 11? This last slot of like Cataclysm versus Jitte versus Path is real close. They're all not great. Cataclysm's good if like my opponent sweeps me and something goes wrong, but otherwise isn't great. Does it make a difference on the play versus draw? Probably. Get in here. Guess Jitte. Alright. Game 1 was a loss. Game 2, we were on the play and we win. Game 3, we were on the draw, and we'll see what happens. Alright, we have a curve of relevant 2-drop into relevant 3-drop here. Our opponent has taken a mulligan to 6 to start things off. I don't really know why our opponent played out the Lotus Petal on their turn 1. Like, they fear turn 2 Thalia, but they're on the play there, so Thalia can't come down on my turn 1, barring anything really kooky. Alright. Now we get to see what the opponent has. It is a Sneak Attack. You have a creature in those 2 cards. You do have a creature in those 2 cards. Is it Griselbrand? It is Griselbrand. Uh-oh, chat. So we're not dead. That's the good news. Our opponent also drew more cards there, which seems aggressive, but that might mean the rest of their hand is kind of weak. Their hand will probably be pretty good now. Our best draw would probably be a Revoker, honestly. We'll see how dead we are based on what my opponent discards. So since my opponent has discarded a Misty, we know they have a red-producing land that will let them activate the sneak attack again. Oh, great. If my opponent is discarding an Emrakul, that probably means they have another Emrakul. So our best draw is our one of Containment Priest now, actually. Which is likely to just get countered. So I talked about this on stream a couple of times previously, but I think the Sneak and Show matchup is one of Death and Tax's worst matchups now. Not like Elves bad, but it is definitely unfavorable, probably by about 20% or something like that. Omniscience is really rough. All right. So let's say that magically my opponent accidentally discarded all of their good cards. What line puts me the best off? Probably just Canonist. They don't get to cantrip at all. I'm just assuming we're 100% dead. Like, I can't see any scenarios under which we are not dead. Like, if our opponent has a Force of Will or something, they probably don't even bother to force this. The opponent also discarded Omni. Oh, great. Yep, sneak attack. There's a second spaghetti monster. And we are dead. Alright. So we have a loss there. Game 2 we won with Thalia and Wingmare as disruptive elements. In Game 3 we lost to, what was that, a turn 2? Yeah, turn 2 Sneak for Grizzlebrand. Alright, so we are currently an unimpressive 1-2 in this league, which is fine. We can go ahead and recover that. You know, nothing wrong with that. It happens sometimes. But I'm pretty happy with the build so far. I'm going to take about 30 seconds to go refill my water before I start up the next match. Alright, let's jump back in the queue now. So today, so far, has been a win to Sneak and Show, a loss to Delver, and a loss to Sneak and Show. So thank you to all of you who are tuning in for today. I'm sure many of you are working and just kind of have this on in the background, and I appreciate you coming and supporting the stream. If you haven't already and you want to follow so that you help support the stream in a little way and help me start moving towards partners so that I can start making some money off this whole streaming thing and get all the other features like the subscriber button and fun little emotes and whatnot, I would appreciate that. Alright. Thanks. Nah. No results for this player. We will keep a generically good hand here. You know, we have an Ether Vial off of Plains, which is pretty good, followed by a Stoneforge or a Port or another Vial as a play. Alright. Whatever my opponent is playing, this Magus of the Moon probably needs to go. It is a long-term problem for whatever strategy they are doing that is going to include the card Bayou in it. If I were to take a guess right now, I would say that my opponent is on Turbo Depths. We're on the draw for this one. We're playing against Thanks Nah. Alright, Turbo Depths confirmed. Alright, Swords of Plowshares is a decent card. You don't really want to give your opponent 20 life off a Merit Lodge, but sometimes it's one of those things you need to do. I'm going to go ahead and port my opponent this turn. Like, there are a lot of lines available to us. We can tap out for Stoneforge to try to get some pressure. We can port, we can Vial and hold up swords. Like, there are lots and lots and lots of lines available. Since I have 2 pieces of removal for a Merit Lodge, I just want to buy some time to get sort of my Vial up to 3, and port will probably allow me to do that better than the other options. We will tap the Bayou here because it lets them play all of their cards like Sylvan Scrying and Crop Rotation and Inquisition and Thoughtseize and all of that, rather than their Thespian Stage, which is a combo piece. Alright, Urborg is really annoying. Not because it's necessarily a good card, but because now I have to select what color of mana I would like to produce with all of my lands instead of just tapping them. I'm going to go ahead and fetch out a Plateau preemptively here. Since my opponent has already seen the Magus, I'm not actually hiding any information by just fetching another Plains. I'll play a Vial, and I'll plan on using Stoneforge Mystic to get a piece of equipment at end of turn, and we will port my opponent again. So this turn we have a real choice. If my opponent plays Dark Depths, then they have Dark Depths and Tomb to produce 2 mana, and then Thespian Stage can go ahead and become a Dark Depths. But we have this Flicker Wisp that we can put the Vial on the following turn to get rid of it, or we can hardcast this Flicker Wisp. So we actually don't care if my opponent produces the Merit Lodge, so I'm going to keep them off their green spells again, just trying to keep them from casting something like a Sylvan Scribe. But it is a real choice this turn, rather than just sort of a default like it was the previous turn. Ooh, we get Inquisition. That's fine. I don't need to respond to this in Violent Stoneforge because my opponent is 100% taking the Flicker Wisp, and I have a backup one as well. Alright, so I have a question here. Do I want to get Jitte or do I want to get Batterskull? If my opponent has a Simian Spirit Guide, they can produce Merit Lodge now, and so if I draw a land attacking in and getting the Jitte would allow me to gain life and not die to Simian Spirit Guide. But if I get Batterskull, I have a more generically good threat. Sort of what I have to think about is what I want to do with this vial. I can tick up the vial to allow me to start using top deck Flicker Wisp, or to get to the point where Palace Jailer or Pia and Kiran, there we go, Pia and Kiran Nalar would be live. If I tick up the vial, then just getting the Batterskull now is probably better. But this is close. I'm gonna get the Batterskull. So how much does D&T cost on Modo? When I got it a couple of, I guess it was like 6 months ago now, it was about $700, but I think it has dropped since then. I think you're probably looking somewhere closer to the 500 range at this point. Alright, so we draw the land and we're punished for not getting Jitte, but that's okay. So we'll plan on just fetching a plains here. And we're going to do this now so that my opponent can't remove the Stoneforge in response to me fetching later. We're going to go ahead and port their Thespian stage in their upkeep to force them to choose to either make it now or wait an entire turn. So we're going to leave one vial at 3 and tick the other up to 2. I won't use this one. I will use this one. Drawing Jitte isn't bad. Drawing Jitte isn't bad at all. So I can Stoneforge, get Sword of Fire and Ice, equip Sword of Fire and Ice, gain 6 life, that puts me up to 24. Or I can play Jitte, equip Jitte, attack. That would effectively put me up to 28 life. Yes, if we draw Pia and Kiran, it is indeed awkward. So I fetched the second plains so that I could have white-white if my opponent if I Magus of the Moon. Alright, I'm going to go on the life gain plan here. I'm going to try to gain as much life as possible, and we might potentially somehow be able to live through 2 Merit Lodge hits. Like, we can gain 8 life this turn, drawing a land next turn. Like, kind of what happens here depends on whether my opponent blocks this Stoneforge or the Batterskull. Alright. So we have 4 more life queued up. So what happens if we draw land? So this attack puts us to 2. If we draw land, we equip Batterskull. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13. We'll be a little short of gaining 20. We have a lot of live draws. So now we get this sword. We can draw Caracas, we can draw Flicker Wisp, we can draw Palace Jailer. I'm going to go ahead and tick up both vials. There's not a lot of 2-drops. I'd want a violin now. Alright, rest in peace. Not the greatest draw. We will get 1 more draw from this Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic will not do it. We will go ahead and just make sure my opponent attacks and doesn't hold anything back. They shouldn't hold anything back, but we'll see if they do. They might think that because I didn't concede, I have something and not attack, but yeah, we're dead here, assuming my opponent attacks. My opponent might be able to Thought Seize us here or something. To just double check. No. Alright, they just crash in and we die. Alright. So game 1 we lose to Merit Lodge. Off stage and depths. We'll get to be on the play for the next one. Luckily, I generically very, very much like this matchup. Like, we get these Path to Exiles. We get... This Aethersworn Canonist is okay. It can lower the curve. We get a Prelate. We get a Crusader. And, like, we can kind of consider some of these B-tier cards as well, depending on how many things we want to board out. Rest in Peace isn't really good against Turbo Depths. They're not recurring their lands. So we'll make a note of that in our Rest in Peace log, and let's start taking out the things that don't matter in this matchup. We can pull the Jitte, we can pull the Rest in Peace. We wouldn't have gotten one more draw, though, because if my opponent if I equip the sword there instead, my opponent blocks the whichever creature has the sword on it, and so they'll take 2 more damage, I'll gain 2 more life, but that's still not enough to change anything. Mom's okay in this matchup because with a flyer it blocks Merit Lodge. The Stoneforge package is kind of weak. Like, gaining life is relevant. It will let you live through a Merit Lodge activation, but I think most of the rest of what we have going on is just going to be better than that. Like, we want things that disrupt their mana, things that kill a Merit Lodge, things that go after their lands, and most of that is not what the Stoneforge package wants us to be doing. Cataclysm is probably a little bit too ambitious. The Leonin Relic Order can grab a piece of artifact mana, which is not irrelevant, or a card like Sylvan Library that they might have. So I need to make one more cut. The Canonist probably isn't that great. We're going to mulligan this one. And we're going to keep this one. Okay, so we can't actually cast this Magus of the Moon right now, but it is a really, really good card in the matchup, and we have an Ether Vial, so I am A-okay with keeping this. We have a port and a path to let us survive until turn 4, and assuming we make it there, Magus largely will win us the game. Alright, so my opponent might be priced into taking the Leonin Relic Order here if their hand leans heavily on this Mox Diamond. Or if they take the Path to Exile, that means a turn down the line we will get to eat their Mox Diamond with the Leonin Relic Order. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and hold up Path for my turn, for their turn, and if they don't do anything, I will port their fetch. In a deck like this, there's very minimal to be gained by porting their fetch now. Alright. I will go ahead and port that in response. They'll fetch. Ooh. So we now know that my opponent is on the blue, the sort of the bug build of this deck, rather than the traditional green-black version. Alright, that was a rough combination of cards for our opponent to have, but the good news for us is they are at one card in hand. They have neither combo piece in play. So this is actually not all that bad. With a land, we can Recruiter for any number of cards that matter very much in this matchup, and we still have something that can deal with the first Merit Lodge. Yep, so here we go. Drawing a Caracas is really good as well. So now we still have a piece of disruption for a Merit Lodge. Alright, the question becomes, what do I want to get with this Recruiter? If I get a land, having a Palace Jailer will really dig me out of this situation. I can just get something that is generically disruptive, like a Phyrexian Revoker. I can get a Flicker Wisp as something that can just bounce the Recruiter, or serve as a rebuy on the Tutor, or bounce the Mox Diamond to try to get rid of it. So getting Palace Jailer is the highest upside play. Getting Flicker Wisp is a pretty safe play on a number of different levels, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The Flicker Wisp can also let us bounce this Pithing Needle and violin our Magus of the Moon. Don't really know why my opponent's thinking about this so much. I showed the Flicker Wisp the previous turn. Crop rotation. Alright. This is awkward, but not that awkward. So we're still going to go with our plan. We are going to go ahead and bounce this Pithing Needle, violin our Magus. We will allow our opponent to make the 20/20. Flicker Wisp will chump block it, and then we can Swords to Plowshare it. There is the alternative line of just bouncing their Mox Diamond, killing their Mox Diamond, chump blocking with Flicker Wisp, using Caracas to bounce Merit Lodge and not give them the 20 life. But with this Magus in play, they're going to have a great deal of difficulty producing another Merit Lodge. So they have this exact draw step to draw an Abrupt Decay to kill Flicker Wisp, so that I am dead. For no, now we're going to say always no to that Ether Vial. Get that Merit Lodge out of here. Get another useless Ether Vial in here. If I draw another white source, I can Flicker Wisp my Recruiter for some value, or Flicker Wisp their Mox Diamond to completely take them off of mana. So kind of, as you can see, even though we gave our opponent 20 life, it doesn't really matter if they can't do anything with their entire deck. And if our opponent somehow gets both Maguses off the field, they still have to deal with Port Caracas Wasteland, which is a tricky combination to say the least. Yeah, Magus is nice. I can just click my lands and mana comes out. None of this Urborg shenanigan. Alright, so Abrupt Decay is now a card that my opponent can cast. A Vampire Hexmage is annoying. That will hold the ground. And I'm not going to do anything ambitious like make attacks in. Like we have so many things that can just attack through this Vampire Hexmage that we can eventually draw. We don't need to get greedy here and just like try to push minimal amounts of damage. Probably is great. That can trade with a Vampire Hexmage. Or just attack for 2 a turn and have my opponent on an 8-turn clock. That's good enough as well. So Brainstorm is actually not a very good card on the current board, because unless my opponent like has something like a crop rotation to shuffle, they're priced into redrawing those 2 cards that they just put back. All right. Yeah, we have 2 planes left in the deck. So my opponent has to end up with 2 removal spells for both Maguses, and then also be able to beat my board of lands, unless they have some alternate win condition in their deck, like a Tireless Tracker. That's an okay draw. That's an okay draw. I will go ahead and sacrifice one of these Ether Vials that aren't going to do anything. Alright, our opponent has conceded. Alright, so we win game 2. Like, Pia and Kieran, like, was the card that did the last thing that technically killed them, but Magus of the Moon was the card that really won the game. The second one solidified that as well. I like the way that we have sideboarded. I don't really think we need to change anything. Now sort of seeing the scenario that came up in that last game where if I have a stalled board, a Vampire Hexmage does stall it. I think I'm going to board out the sort of random Aetherthorn Canonist I brought in for 1 piece of equipment. I think I'll take Sword of Fire and Ice here for the draw potential that it has. The other 2 have the potential of gaining life, but if I'm fetching as well, then that might put me over 21, but I don't think I'm too worried about the first Merit Lodge. This hand is a little awkward with double Pia and Kieran. Those are dead cards at the moment. But we have Thalia, which is a great card against the deck, and we have Karakas, which has to be answered with like a Pithing Needle or an opposing Wasteland or Ghost Quarter. This hand is probably good enough to keep. Like, this is probably better than the average 6-card hand that we're going to get. And if our opponent has a piece of... Thespian Stage Go might be a sign of weakness, but my opponent kept a 7, so they might just be trying to get that wastelanded right away. Our hand now has 3 currently uncastable cards. Duress, Whiff. Ugh. Since we have 3 Thalias, we're gonna go ahead and attack with the mom. I don't care about the mom or the Thalia dying with my current board, I just want to press damage as quickly as possible. Alright, there's a wasteland for my Caracas. And now we have a choice about what we want to put this cavern on. If my opponent removes a Thalia at some point, having it on human is nice. Otherwise, having it on Artificer would allow me to cast both a Stoneforge and a Pia and Kieran, but all the Stoneforges are in this sideboard, so just putting it on human is fine. That might stop us from casting this Leonin Relic Warder if my opponent gets a Pithing Needle or something. But I don't want to put it on Cat or Cleric. Oh, Viola's a great draw. Okay, if I tap out for this Ether Vial and my opponent has Dark Depths in hand or draws Dark Depths, we are likely to die from the Merit Lodge token. But if I tap out for this Ether Vial now, I can port for the rest of the game pretty safely. So I think I have to take this opportunity to do this. Like, just porting my opponent again is probably not a profitable enough line that ends up with us winning. At only 3 damage a turn right now, assuming my opponent fetches that Polluted Delta at some point, that still puts me at a 4-turn clock, which is a ton. And if my opponent has two lands, then the porting won't actually play around the Merit Lodge token for long. Alright, Wasteland is great. We will have sort of the question of what we want to do with this Wasteland. I don't necessarily want to Wasteland right now, as a crop rotation for Dark Depths would be very, very bad for me. I think I'm going to make my opponent deal with the Wasteland and sort of hold it up as a defensive safety net. My opponent is now on a 3-turn clock. My opponent is likely to use 1 Thespian stage to copy a Wasteland here from me. Ooh, but it looks like they're copying their own Bayou. Interesting. It might be choked on colored mana. Should I let them do this? I can Wasteland this Bayou now. And if I do so, then I can port the other Bayou. They won't have any main phase black or green mana. But again, playing a Dark Depths would mean that they can just make a Thespian, a Merit Lodge token. So I will let them have their green mana, unfortunately. Yeah, I agree. That is a bait play. It is a decent bait play, but a bait play nonetheless. I honestly think it was a misplay. I think they were supposed to copy my wasteland. If they tried to copy my wasteland, I would probably stop that. Ah, a crop rotation, you say? What are you getting? So it is possible that my opponent has yet another crop rotation, and that getting rid of this Dark Depths right here could be bad for me. But if my opponent has either a Vampire Hex Mage in hand, or more specifically a Thespian stage, then just getting this Dark Depths off the table right now is very good. So I'm going to go ahead and Wasteland the Dark Depths. This does sort of look like a bait play, but I don't think I can play around it. So I would not be surprised to see second crop rotation here. Yes, second crop rotation. All right. Attack my opponent down to 6. And now I can play out a Revoker and a Relic Warder and be presenting lethal damage. Or I can port my opponent to try to force them to make the Merit Lodge now, showing strength that I have it. I'm going to try to put as much power into play as I can. So this is going to name Vampire Hex Mage. Then I'll go ahead and pass the turn. Oh, Palace Jailer, turn too slow. Okay, so looking back to that one, if I don't wasteland my opponent, they did not have the Thespian stage that I played around. So if I just sit there with my wasteland and don't use my wasteland, then on their following turn they untap and they have the ability to try to make the Merit Lodge, and they would have to have another piece of disruption in order to get through that. So what I did was I called them on having the second prop rotation and played around Thespian stage, whereas not wastelanding them would not play around the additional Thespian stage. Or I guess it would, because my opponent would then wait and we'd have a staring contest. So maybe the line I took was wrong. Yeah, I think I should have waited in retrospect. But you can't sit there necessarily and puzzling through something for, 5 minutes to figure out the best line. I was already pretty low on the timer there. Alright, so game 3 result is a loss. Game 3, we lose to Merit Lodge via stage depths off crop rotation. All right, so we have bombed out of this league, so I'm going to go ahead and drop from this one and enter into another one. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and stop the stream for about 30 seconds, just for the sake of uploading a second video, so that this stream video doesn't get like super long. So I'm going to stop the stream for about 30 seconds and start it back up with another set.